In today's video, I will be showing you how to make Scottish smoked salmon right here in Alaska. And this is a new recipe for me, so we're gonna go through this together. This is called a Scotch smoking technique, so from Scotland. I know a lot of my videos focus on construction, but I really would like my videos to focus on more of the living aspects of Alaska as opposed to the construction aspects, although you need both. You can't have one without the other. Okay, so here are my salmon fillets. They're thawed out, and what I'm going to do is dry salt them. We got these bones in the thick part of the fish, and those are going to go down to about, this one has a bend to it because that's the way I froze it, but okay. So you have the bones here, and you just cut on the left side of them, and you can cut on the right side of them, and then you just yank them out, skin and all, and then you can, there you go. You can see these fillets here, they fit on the cutting board. These are Kasilof River reds, and the Kasilof River are smaller than they are on the Kenai in comparison, but I like them. It's closer to my house anyway. You got a lot less tourists because, well, it makes sense if you're driving all the way from Anchorage to fish. Why would you fill your bag limit with smaller fish? But it's still plenty of fish for me, and they're a little bit more manageable, and I think they taste just a little bit better because of that. Now it's important that you use canning salt right here, canning salt, and it's gonna say canning salt on it. I'm not sure if your grocery store has it, but I'm sure it does. I had to go to a couple different ones to find it, but it's not expensive. I think the salt is less, I'm not sure what it is, but use the canning salt. And you're gonna sprinkle that over the fish, and you really wanna cover it all. Now, salmon is a thick, fatty fish as compared to maybe a panfish that you would catch, or maybe even a trout. Catfish even might not be as fat as a salmon is. And when I say fat, I mean the thickness of it, literally the thickness, but also it's high in fat. It has a lot of omega-3s. One of the reasons why people go crazy for salmon, why it tastes so good and so good for you, is all the fat that it has in it. An interesting fact about the red salmon. So a lot of fish that are salmon size are predators. So that means they're living off of, they're eating other fish. And so when they eat other fish, the mercury builds up in their system, and so you have fish like shark and tuna actually has really high mercury because they eat so much fish. But these red salmon eat krill for 2/3 of their life, and so there's not really enough time for mercury to build up in a red salmon. So they're very low in mercury, if any, and they're very high in omega-3s because of the krill. So you're getting the best of all possible worlds eating red salmon. Of course, the wild ones, not the farmed ones. Now, I was told to score the back of the skin just like this, and that's gonna let the salt work its way in to the fish. I've never really done that before, so we'll do it on a couple here. It seems, I don't know. Man, it might help. I'm not sure why it wouldn't help. It kind of makes sense. You're letting the salt get in. There it is. It's tougher to cut than you think it is. You open up the fish from all ends. The nice thing too about removing the bones is the salt can really work its way into the thickest part of the meat, and that's going to pull out the water. So what this salt is doing is pulling out the water. Now fish live in the water. There's a lot of water in the meat, and the water is kind of what gives it that fishy taste. It also detracts from its storage capabilities. And we want to get the salt rubbed in both sides. We're gonna let it go to work, doing what it does best, and cure these fish. And now comes the fun part where we let it sit for 6 hours, basically, overnight. I'm gonna let this sit overnight. See all this liquid in here? That is all from the fish. I didn't put any water in there. And that's exactly what you want to happen. And you want to see how firm it is. See that? If it was a raw salmon, I'd be able to just pop right through that. I take a freshwater bath, which is here, and I'm going to remove all of the salt from the fish. I mean, this is nice. This is not sloppy anymore. It's not gooey. It's a nice firm fillet. Now I need to dry these overnight, so I'm putting them on my smoker rack. And once I get them all on there, I'm going to dry them out overnight and let these firm up again without any salt on them this time. It's a nice thick one. See how it's not flopping? That's what you want. That's the whole point of the salt. So I'm gonna let these sit out here overnight. Let them dry completely, make sure they're not touching each other. And you know, I'm in Alaska, so I'm lucky. It's cool out here. It's basically like a refrigerator. It gets up to 40 degrees in the middle of the day. It's gonna get down to just around freezing at night. So it's just perfect refrigeration weather, and that's really gonna let me give these fish the time that they deserve. A good smoked salmon has a lot of sitting and drying, and because I don't have to worry about refrigeration and I have the great outdoors to do it all in, all it takes is time and space, but it's not that hard, and I have both those things, time and space. I'm not entirely sure what the oil is going to do to the process, because the next step is to then wipe it off with alcohol, but it must do something. It's probably related to the flavor, and maybe I'm putting a lot of good fat on the fish. I mean, I'm sure it's gonna taste great, so yeah, okay. Olive oil it is, no problem. You're not gonna get any arguments from me with bathing salmon in olive oil. And then just like before, I'm gonna go put it in my smoker and let it sit out there for at least 6 hours before the next step. And so now I need to remove the oil. The recipe calls for rum, but I'm going to use some Samuel Grant bourbon whiskey. Now I rub it in brown sugar. And I highly recommend everyone do this on their dining room table at home. Doesn't even make that much of a mess. The salmon has been curing now with sugar on it. And now it's time to wipe the sugar off. The best way to do that is with whiskey. And I've come to learn about salmon is that you really can't over season it. It's a strong flavored fish. And when you eat a lot of it, you start to get pretty sick of the salmon flavor pretty quickly. And so it may seem like a lot of work, but when you have hundreds of salmon at your disposal, you want to find a good way to prepare them, cook them, and eat them. We're going to put oil on it once more. Then I go let this cure outside for another 6 hours, and then the smoking will begin. It looks good. It's got a nice tacky layer on the outside. That's gonna be able to absorb the smoke really nicely. The trick with the propane, you wanna keep it low enough to make enough smoke here. But you also don't want it too low where it goes out. because this is gonna take about 12 hours. Put a lid over it to stop any drips that might occur. And what's nice about this smoker is that it's a cold smoker, and it's cold because the outside temperature is cold. So it's that easy. And I can fit, when that thing is at full capacity, I can fit 24 salmon in there. So I'm trying to get the recipe down before loading it up. I'll lock her up here. Check it periodically, make sure it's smoking, and 12 hours we'll have cured Scottish salmon. I've been using birch chips. It's the hardest wood available up here. It has a nice light sweet flavor to it. Some guys like to use alder. I've heard a couple of guys swear by cottonwood, but I like birch. When my apple trees get bigger, I'll be using apples to do it as well. You see the smoke coming out the corners here. All good. Oh, those look just incredible. And it should stay together. Yep. Yeah, wow. That looks, I mean, that's perfect right there. Nothing like a breakfast of eggs and smoked salmon. Mmm. It's delicious. Salty, sweet. I could eat this every day. Well, if you like that video, share, like, and subscribe.